Welcome to Drop the Act, a new podcast with me, your host, Christopher Key. Today we're joined by Martin Tierney, Managing Director of Seating Matters, a leader revolutionising therapeutic seating for caregivers and patients worldwide. Martin Tierney has transformed a family business in Northern Ireland into a global brand and has built a culture where every idea matters. His approach to collaboration and trust has not only reshaped his company, but also inspired teams across other industries. In this episode, Martin shares a remarkable story and we discuss how authentic leadership and a shared purpose can create a lasting impact. No spoilers, but this is an episode you don't want to miss. Now, as always, the quality of our guest depends on you, our audience, so please like, share and subscribe. Right, I think that's all the formalities out of the way. Please enjoy episode 1 of Drop the Act. Welcome to the Performing Perfectly podcast, Martin Tierney. I'm really pleased to be here today at Seating Matters in Limavady. I was just having a little walk around the factory, and first of all, it's spotless. It's extremely clean for a factory floor. And then I saw a sign for the world's cleanest toilets. Seems a strange way to start a podcast, doesn't it? And then in the toilets, I saw a sign that said, leave it better than when you found it. And,
yes.
And I think maybe has that been sort of your philosophy for business over the years?
Absolutely, yeah. Great to have you here and to see it in person. Leave it better than you found it. I suppose it's a guiding principle of what we're doing at Seating Matters and how we try and run the business and treat other people and even the products that we're making. We want to help leave it better than we found it.
And so let's just touch on the products. And there's a sort of remarkable story attached to that. We're here in a beautiful part of the world. I've never been here before. My wife Lucy's been here and has raved about not just the factory, but the whole setting. And your family home is, 100 yards away or whatever. And I just wonder if you could just give us a little brief background into what it is that Seating Matters do and how it started and how it's grown from that family home to where we are now.
Yeah, so Seating Matters is very much a family business. So my mother, Martina, is an occupational therapist, and she saw a need for clinical seating for her patients who were in hospitals, in care homes, or in home care. And my father made a chair for one of her patients. And he made another and made another. And then we reckoned, hold on, are there more OTs in the world than just our mother? And it turns out there's quite a few more, something like 30,000 of them in the UK. So we set up Seating Matters to do research and design and to make clinical chairs for these patients and for their caregivers. So that's a way back in the day when we started. If we fast forward until today, we're making a range of adult and pediatric chairs for bariatric patients who, and in a range of medical conditions. They might have rehabilitation needs after a stroke. It could be an older person with dementia. And we make them all here in this factory in Northern Ireland and export them to different countries around the world.
And you mentioned just then that it's a family business, and obviously your mother and working alongside your two brothers. That's, there's often unique dynamics involved in families and working with them as well. And how do you manage that and how do you find that? And do you find that it's actually a strength for the business because of that family connection?
Yeah, we've got a board chairman whose name's Rob, and Rob says that a family business run well is the best business that there is. And it's absolutely true, because in a family, you've got that deep level of trust and understanding with other people. We're thinking on the long term, what's going to happen in 10 and 20 and 30 years' time. And we're treating the people that work with us and our suppliers and our customers, they're all an extension of our family. So yes, we have to look out for each other. Yes, we all have to perform. Yes, we have to live up to our promises. But there's an underlying set of values there that exist that really drive what we're doing. As opposed to like a private equity-backed company or something, they've got a very different gating purpose. There's nothing wrong with that. But their gating purpose is very clearly profit. And in a family business, yes, we have to make profit because we have to pay our staff and we have to pay ourselves. And I've got kids that need new shoes. But it's much more than that. It's not profit at all costs. It's profit in line with our values, in line with our DNA and our principles. So yeah, family business run well is an excellent business, and we're doing our best to run it as best we can.
And you mentioned your values there, and I don't know if you're able to sort of expand a little bit on those core values and how do you instill those on the people? I mean, how many people work now in this factory? How many have you got?
Yeah, so we've about 100 people here on the site, and we have different subsidiaries in different parts of the world as well. But the guiding thing for us is our DNA, and that's D, it's driven by growth. N is never giving up, and A is having a servant's heart. And for us, those are the three fundamental things that a person must have in order to get in the door at Seating Matters. If they don't have a servant's heart, well, nothing else matters. We need someone here who will serve and care like a nurse in ICU does. We want someone that will never give up, because what we're doing is difficult. Like, we're trying to achieve big things, and it's not easy. And if we have someone who's going to give up at the first or the second or the third hurdle, probably won't fit in either. And then the D, the driven by growth. We all want growth and opportunity for ourselves and our family and our company. And so those are the guiding principles that we live by.
And how do you assess that out of interest? If there's a job application that goes out and people walk through the door, I mean, I cast shows for a living, so often I'm looking at people coming in and performing, but I'm also trying to gauge who they are as a person as well. I mean, how do you look for that when you're meeting people for the first time?
Well, a perfect example, I met a lady a few months ago and for a sales job. And she says, yes, in my previous company, I've achieved this number of sales and I get into this account and I grew it from X to Y. And I was like, okay, very good. Interesting. That's all nice. But I was like, where do you live? Where do you come from? Like, where did you grow up? And she started to tell me about she and her husband are adopting a child. And they're adopting a child from a different country and they're bringing this child in, and she get into this whole thing about why I want to go to work is to earn a specific level of money so that I can provide this child with the opportunity that child never had before. And I was just so amazing. She has a servant's heart and she's driven by growth because she wants to provide an opportunity for a child that she's been entrusted to be the mother of. And, she's not going to give up when it gets hard, so I think just getting to know people on a human level, like, tell me about your dog.
Yeah.
Tell me about your kids. Tell me about where you went on holidays, and, understanding people. It's much more than a contractual relationship. We really feel like we've got a duty of care for everyone that's involved in Seating Matters. And to really care, you really have to know and understand the person.
Lucy mentioned when she was here, one of the things that she found fascinating and inspiring was the sort of ritual that you have at the beginning of the day. Can you just talk us through how that came about and what that is?
Yeah, just some context. Like, when you flew in here this morning, it's an hour and a half drive from the airport up into the mountains. We're not exactly Manhattan here. We're not in any maps or anything like that. We're out in a rural part of the world, and we do some pretty unusual things. So we start our day with a morning meeting, and the morning meeting starts with stretches. So we put on loud music and we're thumping music and we're doing stretches. And then we get into gratitude. What are you grateful for? And people say, oh, I'm grateful that, my husband made dinner last night. Or I'm grateful that in 2 weeks' time, we're taking a weekend trip to such and such. And again, back to that human connection, it helps you connect with people on a human level. And then we get into our production targets, and did we have any improvement opportunities from yesterday, and what's the learning for today, and if we have any visitors and all these things. And then we end with shout outs, and it's gratitude for someone else in the room. So I'll say a big shout out to Mark for setting up the audio in the podcast room today, because he was here early, he had everything set up, it works perfectly. Shout out to him, so that he's recognised in front of all his peers at the high level of skill that he has, where maybe someone in the welding area didn't know about Mark's ability. So yeah, that's what we do. And it's about creating bonds between people, creating a nice culture where people are safe to say, I've got a problem. I need help with such and such. I made a mistake yesterday and I need someone to come and pull me out today. And it's an important part of what we do.
And am I right in saying that a different person leads that every day?
Yes.
And it could be anyone in any position in the whole company?
I'm going to Japan next week. And in Japan, I'm going to meet a guy called Mr. Amazawa, and he is the former president of Lexus. And when I met him last year, I said to him, how would you describe Lexus or Toyota to someone that didn't know the company? This is the former president of the company. His brother-in-law was the president of Toyota. He said, Toyota is a teaching and training organization who happen to make cars. A teaching and training organization. So our morning meeting is really a teaching and training forum for everyone that works in the company. So if you're attending the meeting, like I did this morning, I was in the audience, if you like. I learned from the speaker. But the speaker learned so much from presenting. And in Seating Matters, everyone takes the morning meeting. So it's Anna in welding today, it's B for Beverly in sewing tomorrow, it's C for Kathy in foam the day after. And they learn so much about themselves, how to present, how to be confident, how to stand up in front of a group of 50 other people and tell a story, get a message across. And when you see people coming in, their confidence just grows so much from being in that environment. They know that if they screw up, no one's going to laugh, no one's going to criticize them. We just help them fix the iPad, or we'll go back to the start and start over again. No one cares. And it's amazing to see the transformation in people once they get the chance to do that.
And do you find, is there or has there been resistance to that? Has that something you've had to really nurture?
Yeah, well, they say that 3 out of 4 people would rather die than do public speaking. So given the chance to be at a funeral, most of them would rather be in the box than giving the eulogy. So yeah, people are naturally afraid of it. But there's one guy called Sean, for example, and he's been here more than 10 years. And when he started, he was shy, backward. He kept the hood up because he didn't want to talk to anyone. And now Sean does the morning meetings to an amazing level. Sean got married and spoke at his own wedding and said, I would not have spoken at my own wedding if it wasn't for doing the morning meeting and Seating Matters. Amazing. But someone brand new coming in tomorrow, yeah, that's nervous, a group of 50 people that I don't know. So we do a buddy system where they have, someone from their work area will come and help them with the iPad, or, you'll do the first part and I'll come in at the second and jump you in at the third. But it's a really safe environment where you have all different levels of ability, but each individual person is growing in confidence every time they do it. It's lovely to see.
It sounds remarkable. Obviously, leadership for you is a core part of your role. How would you describe your leadership style, and I suppose how has it changed and developed over the course of your time here?
Yeah, it's really something that I got from yourself and Lucy about communication, that it's my job to transfer emotion and to transfer feelings to other people. And I couldn't weld the chair. I don't know how to do it. I'm not the best person at doing marketing. I'm not the best person at selling. There's lots of things that I'm really bad at. But I think what I see part of my role is to get results through people. And sometimes that's the emotion is, look, we really need to forget the trip that we were doing next week. We have to go down the mine and we have to do some difficult stuff here for the next 5 days. And this is going to be really tough. But we have to do it because there's a patient waiting on this chair that is suffering and in pain because we haven't helped them just yet. Sometimes it's encouraging and motivating, but it's really about that transfer of emotion, getting the purpose reinforced to people, to let them know that what we're doing is for the greater good. We're helping people who are suffering and in pain because they haven't got our products yet. So yes, we have to speed up the design. Sorry, no, we can't take that opportunity because we're focusing on this other thing. So I think that's a big part of what I'm doing, communicating in a particular way.
And I suppose setting up those values so clearly and giving people the sort of opportunities as you do at the morning meeting also helps instill what it's about and the value you have for your staff.
Yeah. And last week we had 60, 70 people from our sales team from around the world here at our factory, and had everyone here for 2 days. And how much information can we get into their head in 2 days? Well, we'll try and give them value, try and tell them, here's the new dimensions of the new product, here's the new sales structure, here's the new X, Y, Z technical things. But more important than that was for those people to go away with this deep feeling that we're doing something great for caregivers and patients. We're part of a team that's going to look out for us if we get something wrong. I'm out in the road doing sales and I have made a huge mistake. I've quoted the wrong price or I've done something terrible. The company are going to look after me. They're going to support me. So that transfer of that feeling of motivation, of excitement, of care and compassion, that to me is more important than the technicalities that come after it. Or maybe not more important, but you have to get the emotion right first and then follow it up with solid technical things later.
I think so. We met at the ScaleX, so shout out there to ScaleX and Benny and Claire, where we came in to do some communication work. And I think one of the things I probably spoke about is being able to deliver with passion, to be able to get your message across, and with something as personal as your story is with the family connections. I suppose it's even more important to make sure that anyone you're trying to sell this product to understands how important that is to you. So therefore the communication side of things is greatly important in that situation.
Yeah, and lots of our team have been coached by yourself and Lucy, and it's really made an enormous impact on how they do their work. You know, the technicalities of the chair are the same, but why were we not able to get that understanding from the customer? Why, when we're saying, we believe this is the best thing that you could be doing in your hospital to get these chairs to help your patients, why were people not hearing that? And I think it's the delivery of the message, the structure of the message, how you bring emotion and feeling into it. You know, we're saying, 23% of people say such and such. The caregiver doesn't care. The patient doesn't care. They want to know, are you going to look out for my patient? I've been in here doing a 12-hour shift today. I have missed my kid's sports day because I am here in the ICU working with this patient who's on death's door. Do you understand me? Do you care for me? Are you going to help me? And I think that's a barrier that you have really helped us to break down, that people have a much greater understanding of where we're coming from because we're communicating it in a proper way.
And have there been sort of moments that for you have really resonated, seeing situations where your staff have stepped out of their comfort zone, have done things in a different way and got results?
Yeah, more than enough occasions. I think in our professional life, we're almost afraid to be vulnerable. And so, the more professional I get and the higher up in this organization I go, the less of myself I should be and the more of my profession I should be. But we've kind of tipped that in its head, you know. Kirsty, an occupational therapist that works with us, who you've coached as well, tells her story of having a traumatic brain injury and a spinal injury and being paralysed and having to learn to walk again. That's why she's an OT. That's why she came to work for Seating Matters. That's why she cares about helping your patient, because she was that patient a few months ago. My mother tells the story of the first patient that she ever treated was a man who was the doctor that cared for her parents when they were ill. And it came full circle and she started to treat this guy again as an OT. That's why she cares so much. And that's why when she's influencing the design of her product, she's thinking on the man that cared for my mother. So I think that has been a real shift for us that you have helped us with. Is we're all humans, we need human connections. And yes, we have our jobs to do, and technical and safety and pricing and all those things are important, but it's a human-to-human connection that we miss out a lot on in today's world.
I did a podcast with a couple of guys from a company called ACT, A-K-T, and they are from a theatre background, and were fed up of basically deodorants not working for them. So set about trying to create natural deodorants as environmentally friendly as possible, and sat in their little flat in London with a saucepan and trying things and experimenting. And they were in musical theatre at the time. And this was sort of finish the show, go home, do that, and keep trying till they get it right. And now they have a product. all sorts of products, which are breaking records and winning awards in the UK and America. And when I spoke to them, I said, I suppose, the appeal is that, we're getting products that are, environmentally friendly. And they went, well, yes, but the research we did into what, our marketing research showed that what people were buying into more than anything else was the story.
Yeah.
They loved the story of the two guys in musical theatre sitting with their stove trying to create this. And that's what people were drawn into. So whereas we think, well, it's all about the product, actually the story behind it and getting that message across is just as, sometimes more important in, as you're saying, for the sales and with your particular product, the emotional connection for people who are purchasing, I imagine, is massive.
Yeah, that's a great story, and it's wonderful to see where different people come from and their the evolution of a product. That's really cool. There's a great book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek, which lots of people will know, and he talks about leading with why you do it, not what you do. So Apple said 1,000 songs in your pocket, which is, this 10 gigabit music storage device, where the other company said, oh, we have a 10 gigabit music storage device and it stores songs and you could listen to them in the bus. The starting with why is so important for communicating a message. I think something that has been forgotten a little bit is that the why has to be so authentic. Like a bank saying that our purpose is to, improve society feels a little bit disingenuous to me, or the cigarette company that bought the medical inhaler company and saying, oh, well, our why is to improve breathing. It's hard to believe that. They had to sell the company only the other day. I think authenticity is the core of it. And for us, we really believe, just tell us who you are, and we're happy to share our background and share our struggles and share our problems, in the work environment, because that's how we get a deeper understanding. That's how we can improve. That's how we can get better. So I think being authentic with the why, authentic with the purpose is such an important part of it.
I think that's something we face all the time with Performing Perfectly. When we go in and we talk about the roles you play every day, the role you play as a father, Martin, the role you play as a leader, and as a son, and whatever else it might be, we all play these different roles. And I suppose we bring that world of theatre into the businesses and say, okay, well, what role do you need to play in this situation? And sometimes people take that and go, well, if I'm playing a role, then I'm not being me, I'm not being authentic. And we always say it's authenticity, as you just mentioned, is the most important thing of all. But there's various versions of ourselves that we have to step into to get the desired results. Yeah. And in order to do that, we talk about our body language, we talk about our the words we choose to use, and of course we then talk about the way we deliver those words with the voice and the passion, the intensity, and the whatever that might be. Is that something your team are now really thinking about, the stepping into a different version of themselves, and analysing every aspect of their communication when they're stepping into to sell?
Yeah, well, when you had us dancing across the floor singing Les Mis as a company, we were far from comfortable that day.
Yeah, of course. I remember.
It's a role that I think plenty of people were happy not to have to reenact again. But I really, we took so much from that, stepping outside of being comfortable, and like the morning meetings again, standing up at the front, doing the role of presenter today, we have to step into these roles to get our message across. If that message is we need to improve the welding process, if the message is we're working with a supplier to get a better style of marketing brochure, whatever it is, being able to effectively communicate that message is so important. And the coaching you did has certainly helped us with that, no end.
We've touched on storytelling and communication, and we've also touched on your leadership styles. I'd love just to talk about a very personal story that you have, and a story that sort of shows the best of humanity, but also about trust. I know that when you speak about it, you talk about contacts and your little black book of contacts and the people you meet, but also the importance of trusting someone. I know it's a personal story. I'm not asking you to relay it, but if there is a way, I suppose, of you just giving us an insight into that, I suppose my question is, you made the connections from that story, from that event, which took place over sort of 4 years of your life, to what a good leader looks like, or what a good leader has to think about. How did that come about? How did you make that connection? I'm sure it wasn't something you were doing at the time.
Yeah. So for context, the short version of the story is that I helped a family whose life was in danger in a developing country on the other side of the world that I didn't know. I had heard their story. I knew their life was in danger, that they were in this very, very precarious position. Someone came to me and said, "Can you help them?" And over a period of 4 years, and these incredible events that you couldn't write if you were a writer for Netflix, we were able to get the family safely to Canada. And they've went on to have this incredibly productive, amazing life in the 6 years since they've got there. For me, in the middle of that story, it was just something that I was doing. This person at the worst point in their life with this incredibly traumatic history came to me and said, "You're the only person that can help me. Can you help me?" And I was doing my work and getting on with making chairs and run the business. And I just said, yeah, I'll do it. And to me, it really was, I'm just getting on with helping them, making the odd phone call here and applying for a visa and, booking them a flight and getting them for somewhere to live in a third country to stay for a while, to escape and all this. Looking back on it, I realized that it was crazy. Looking back on it, I realized that it's a mad story. But in speaking with yourself and Lucy, I got to the realization that there's lessons in that story that are helpful for other people. And out of a fear of self-promotion or, telling my story, I didn't tell anyone for about 6 years that this had happened. The only people that knew were my wife, my mother, my brothers, my sister. But I suppose in talking with Brendan, Claire, Lucy, yourself, it was, that story can help people. There's lessons in that story that will help someone else that's struggling, someone else whose life is in danger. Maybe there's someone out there with the tools to help another family or 10 families, or maybe to help a whole society. Tell the story. And I did. With Lucy's help, she helped me to craft the delivery of that story in a way that has really impacted the lives of a lot of people. I've told the story now to, I'm going to guess, 3,000 or 4,000 school teachers in the UK. Over, 10 events last year have been invited into secondary schools to help teachers that are working with children who have fled dangerous situations in war zones. And these teachers are thinking to themselves, God, it's so difficult for me. I have 10 languages in the school. We've got budget pressures. My class is bigger than it's ever been. And now I've got this child that, and in telling the story, I've had dozens and dozens of messages from teachers saying, my God, we had no understanding of what that child went through. Hearing your story has given me such empathy for that child. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to learn that child's language. I'm going to learn how to say hello in that language. I'm going to organise an event to celebrate their culture in our school. I'm going to start a club in our school that teaches people such and such. These amazing teachers have come up with these amazing things to help these really vulnerable children because I told the story. And maybe I had some impact on it. But I think the way that you helped me craft the story, the way that you helped me deliver the story, has allowed me to deliver it in a way that people are actually going out and doing these amazing things as a result.
I think for me, what struck me was, I mean, I know for people listening, you have summed it up, beautifully, and people listening, I'm sure now will be going, what was it? What's the full details? It's a remarkable story, and it also shows the best of humankind, and it obviously also relates to the worst of humankind. But it also shows resilience, and not just the resilience of that family and everything they went through, but also the resilience that you had to find with every setback along that journey, to be able to continue. Because I think a lot of people would have given up at the first hurdle. Mm-hmm. Is that something that resilience? I suppose it puts it into a new light when you're then coming into business, and resilience played a massive part for you in business over the years. And how do you manage that? How do you build it? How do you grow it?
It's back to that purpose again. Why are you doing what you're doing? And if the why is compelling enough, you'll do anything. Like in Seating Matters, we're giving the caregivers the means to care for a very sick and a very vulnerable patient who absolutely needs our help. And therefore, we don't have time to wait on the design. We don't have time to wait for the truck to get there. Like, we have to do this better and faster and sooner. In the story of that family, if we didn't solve those problems, that family could die. They had no one else that could help them. I was the only person that they were depending on to save their life. So yes, he did end up in jail because of me. Yes, he did go across international boundaries because of me. Yes, we did get visas in 45 minutes. It should have took 3 weeks because of me. Yes, we did find this incredible woman in Ecuador to take the family in for 2 years and no pay when she couldn't speak their language.
That was that moment. I mean, what was it? The one sentence answer that she said that was just basically a yes, that you had to go, hang on a minute. Have you listened to everything I've said? I mean, again, we speak about humanity. That for me was just remarkable.
Yeah. But yes, I was the funnel that those requests came through, and I was able to find the answer over here and relay it back to help the family. But it was only because the purpose was so big. I just couldn't stop. I couldn't say, oh, you have to be in Ecuador this time tomorrow and you need someone to look after you for the next 2 years and you don't have any money to pay them. I'm sorry. Can't do that for you. It's just not an option. So my learning from that is, if it was a life and death situation, what could you possibly do? What could you actually do? And I've done it lots of times, and we all do it, is we say, God, I don't think I'll be bothered with that today, Oh, it didn't work out. Sure, we tried that for 3 weeks and it didn't go anywhere. Well, if a child's life was in danger, like that family, it's probably possible.
Yeah.
And I think we have to remind ourselves of, why am I directing musical theatre? Why, for Mark who's sitting over here, why am I doing podcasts? Why am I a school teacher? Why am I the bus driver? Why do I work in the kitchen in the school? There's a deep, compelling purpose behind that, and you have to remind yourself of that to get you through the difficult things that will inevitably happen.
And was this a story that you said now you didn't tell many people to start off with, and you then have spoken to publicly a lot? What about the people here? Do people in this building know that story? Yeah.
I've my conditions for telling the story are: will it help the audience? Will this help the people that are listening go forward, make an impact in their life? Is the organizer of this event willing to pay me to do it? And if they are willing to pay me, I give the money to charity. So we've raised tens of thousands of pounds for charity since I started telling the story only a year and a half ago. And I don't care if it's one person or if it's 10,000 people. If it meets those conditions, if we can help the designated charity that are helping families like this, if we can help that charity and someone sitting in the audience can take something from it, I'm happy to tell the story all day long. And telling the people in Seaton Matters didn't really fit into that because I don't know. I've this. There's less so now, but there's an embarrassment about telling the story in case people think that, that story's about me. It's not about me. It's about that family, what the world were able to do for them, and my role in it because I understood the purpose and what could be achieved.
It's a big step. It's a very personal, because it's a fine line, isn't it? Which is what I think you've done brilliantly. It's not like, look at me, look what I did. Didn't I do an amazing thing? Yes, you did. But that you didn't do it for that reason. You didn't do it for that credit. But you've taken that story and how you've then added those little moments, those questions, those connections to leadership all the way through it to make people think. And so I think it's a perfect example of how the power of storytelling can help change. Can help change people, can help people think in a different way, and also realize that there's more important things going on in the world, and there's people in far worse situations than the ones we find ourselves in occasionally that we think are the worst thing in the world.
One of the days that I was asked to give this presentation, I was on a stage in the NEC in Birmingham. There was, I don't know, a few thousand people there. And it was the day that Gary Lineker had written on Twitter, so we're sending people to Rwanda now, are we? Or something like that. And the BBC took him off the air and they cancelled Match of the Day. And remember all that?
Yeah.
That was on the very day that I was telling the story. And I remember reading this and I went up onto the stage and I got to the point in the story. I said, I looked up the regulations in the UK and Ireland and Canada, America and Australia and New Zealand, and I realised that the Canadian government are so compassionate for helping people that are struggling in need. And I went right up to the very edge of the stage and my toes were off the edge of the stage. And I said, and we're putting them in boats and sending them to Rwanda? How inhumane are we as people? And about 20 people stood up and started to clap. And about another 50 people stood up and started to clap. And the whole place got up. And I was like this close to crying. But it was just a perfect illustration of, well, it's a compelling story, yes. And you could say, oh, well, I disagree with the Rwanda policy. But say it in a fucking powerful way.
Yeah.
And it drives home with people.
Yeah, but it's also for so many people. It's other people.
Yeah.
We're far removed from it. We don't. It's not going to bother us really. When you've been through what you've been through and experienced it firsthand, and that's 3 people. Well, 4 now. That part of the story I didn't mention because that's your punchline, but it's your big finish. So that's but you wish you could do it to everyone who needs it, and it's which is impossible. So it's
but the story well told is like like the speeches that change history. That's
but also very brave of you as well to make that decision in that moment to add that in, to go to go off script. I know it's one single line and it's so relevant, but in that moment when you said 5 people stood up or 20 people stood up, I thought what and left. That was in my head. Are you going to say that they walked out? And of course, when he went to applause, I was like, thank goodness for that. I just thought suddenly, because Gary Lineker had been kicked off air, that you were being cancelled in that moment for having an opinion on it.
I think it's made a huge impact in telling the story, but you've helped me tell the story in the way that I do. So credit to yourselves for helping me in that way.
Well, I think that's very kind of you. I think one of our purposes with business is to really point out the importance of the storytelling, the importance of that personal human touch, because you can talk about facts and figures and numbers, but actually people, well, we say, real change happens at a feeling level, and it's that emotional connection that will really make a difference, and obviously has made a difference with your team and your company. You mentioned feedback, and we were chatting off mic beforehand. about a little bit about my world, and I told you a story about working in Japan and focusing on the negatives of a performance, trying to fix what was wrong with a performance, and the actor asking me, well, am I doing anything right? And how mortified I was in that moment, and realized that I really had to shift my communication. I had to shift. I had to make sure I remembered the positives, because we know, that it takes something like 5 positives to outweigh a negative, and those negatives that you hear as a child can live with you for the rest of your life. So it really was a learning curve for me. Have you, you mentioned your morning meeting, how do you feedback? How do you give negative news, positive news? What's your leadership style in that situation with your team?
Well, thinking to myself first, what do I need to do to improve, is always my first thing. So if there's a problem, is this a me problem? And in a lot of cases it is. I haven't communicated properly. I haven't shared what the vision is properly. I haven't maybe explained what the outcomes is that we need. So first of all, this is a me problem. So let me help you further. And then, someone has made, we call it like a defect or improvement opportunity. Someone's made a defect at work. Okay, what has happened here? Well, first of all, there's no blame. It's not, you didn't intentionally try to do that, make that mistake. Why did it happen? It happened because I wasn't clear. Why were you not clear? The specification wasn't clear. Why was it not clear enough? I have a reading problem. Or it was in inches and I'm using millimeters. Or my expectation was that if I did this by Monday, it would be fine. I didn't realize that the deadline was Friday. So if we really dig into the why of something, we can find out that it's a training problem, it's a process problem, it's a communication problem, and that takes all the emotion out of it. It's not a, Chris didn't do that thing for me that I wanted him to do. It's, well, I didn't tell Chris properly. Chris didn't have the tools that he needed in order to do it. We didn't set, here's how far I wanted to go and here's kind of what I want it to look like. So setting those things up are so important. And only at the very end of the line is it a people problem. 1% of cases maybe the person intentionally set out to do it wrong. So I think that's a big thing, taking that away. But we have really normalized feedback in Seating Matters, where every single day people put up their hand and say, yep, I made a mistake yesterday. And we go, brilliant, great, thanks for telling us. Woo, well done. You made a chair that been blue and the chair should have been red. Well done, thanks for telling us. How do we stop that ever happening again? Okay, let's relabel it. Let's store them in 2 different ways. Let's have a clear thing on this. Let's have a checklist. Let's train that Rosso means red and Rosso doesn't mean blue. Let's, process, systems, communication. And that's just become normal for us, feedback.
Martin, you were, that remarkable story. You mentioned the work you did with Lucy. I'd love to just elaborate there on what it was she did, how you felt she helped and sort of guided you through that, and what changes and shifts did you make as a result of working with Lucy?
So I suppose the goal of a public speaker is to be booked for gigs, and if a gig's done, you get booked for another one. For this story, I'm giving the money to charity, but I'm still counting the dollars because it's great to be able to do it. I did this once, and it was okay. And then I worked with Lucy, and the next one was really, really good. And I know it was really good because 7 different people booked me to come and speak after it. When I did those 7, I had another 7. I did 24 paid speaking engagements in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Because of the way that Lucy helped me to craft the presentation. And there were some really profound and deep things, but there's also real simple things. I have this habit of doing this with my hand. I don't know why. Lucy goes, Martin.
The Italian in you.
Martin, put your hand in your pocket. The delivery of the way the story is told, you've got to really intense part of the story. Stop. Let the person listen to it. Speak a little bit quieter. And the audience was so drawn in. You can see they're all leaning forward in their chair to listen to that. walking across the stage, moving back and forth across the stage. Where the first time I did it, I'm standing holding on to the podium. I hope nobody sees me up here. Where I'm walking around, and the use of the voice in conjunction with movement, and it's, some are really quite technical, and others are profound, and others are just silly things like, Martin, stop starting all your sentences with the word
It's a common one.
I think so.
Yeah.
And another thing that she helped me with is to, we've talked about feedback. Give myself feedback. So every single presentation I do, I record it by video or audio at the very least. I listen to it immediately once I'm finished, take notes. Why did I do that? Why did I change that? I have a set of notes for what to do before I get on the stage, a set of notes to do what I get off the stage. And I'm continuously improving it, continuously changing it. And I think that's why it's the story is well received, why I'm asked to tell it. But it's really down to applying the principles that you have from music theatre into, a professional presentation or a compelling speech or, communicating with someone one-on-one.
I think there's so many people who will write a great script or a great speech and will read it through, but won't ever perform it until they're actually stood on that stage. The equivalent of an actor just learning his lines but never saying them out loud before he goes out there. So everything you said there, the whole idea of rehearsal, the whole idea of filming, watching it back, and not underestimating the power of pause and the power of pitch and intensity, and really, we always talk about annotating your scripts, annotating your speeches, and knowing exactly what you're going to do throughout, because it will benefit you. I think it's only practice that's going to lead towards perfection. So so I'm glad that helped.
I'm not just performing perfectly yet, but I'm trying to get there.
I think someone said to me once, performing perfectly, what does that mean? Can you ever be perfect? I said, well, you're certainly aiming for it, aren't you? That's the aim for perfection. And so maybe some of us succeed sometimes, but certainly not all of the times.
Yeah.
I heard a wonderful story, and I might get this wrong, and hopefully you know it so you can correct me. And it's the story of a young child who needed a chair, was a Leicester City fan.
Yeah.
Do you know this story?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of your team went the extra mile to get this chair made in blue, Leicester City colours.
That's right.
And then got it signed. Is that right?
It might have been Coventry. Now, I know nothing about sport of any kind.
Well, it may have been Coventry. It was blue. Maybe that was blue and white or something. I remember. Yeah.
So, Connor went out to see this guy who had a need for one of our products. And he said, it really struck me that the guy that was sitting in the chair was the same age as me. And I was thinking to myself, goodness, like, there, but for the grace of God, go I. Like, he is me. And he looked around the room, and he's got all this football memorabilia all around. He's got the posters and the shirts and whatever. So Connor figured out that the chair is the right chair for the person, got them a quote, they were happy with it. He says, how about we make it in the football colours? They said, yeah, let's do that. Me in the football colours. He goes out into the car and he phones the office and he says, I've got a crazy idea. Do you think we could pull this off? And to be fair to Connor and the team here, they said, yep, let's do it. Let's jump into action. They contacted the marketing team at the football club. We got the crest of the football club embroidered into the side of the chair. We made the chair in 2 different tones. So it was like a pale blue and white. We sent the chair to the football club. And after training, all the players came in and they signed the arms of the chair. Brought the chair to the guy's house. And you should see his face just lit up.
I can imagine.
Incredible. If you give him £1 million, he wouldn't have been any happier. And then the football club give him a season ticket to go to any match that he wants. Just amazing. But that's authentic. Connor did that because, he really cared for that guy and he wanted to help him in the best way that he could. And everyone here is really excited to be a part of it, and it's just amazing.
I think it's also a prime example of how it's not about a chair sale. At some level it is, because as you said, everyone's got families to feed or whatever it might be. But it's first and foremost, it's on a personal level.
Yeah,
and that really shines through.
Yeah.
Who have been your inspirations? Who are the people that you've looked up to, that you've learned from, that you've maybe even modelled yourself on a little bit? Is there anyone that springs to mind? And within that question, I suppose, your sort of, if you had a sort of life lesson or something that's been said to you that stuck with you, that's been a mantra moving forwards.
So our father died 10 years ago this week, and the last thing he said to us was, work hard and enjoy it. That's a very simple phrase. There's not very many words in that, but there's a huge, deep meaning behind it. And we're really grateful to my mother and my father for bringing us up the way they did, and all the good things and the difficult things that we've been through with them. But that work hard and enjoy it. There's so much in that. Everyone has got a difficult challenge that they want to try and solve in their life, and do your best and work hard at it to get over it. But you have to enjoy it as you go along. You could die at 52 like my father did. You could die tomorrow. Nobody knows. But I think, enjoy the journey as you're going along.
Martin, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. If anybody wants to get in touch with CT Matters, I mean, obviously they can Google CT Matters. Is there a website, or what's the...
Yeah, get in touch with CT Matters, yeah, definitely. There's lots of people that need our help, and we're delighted to get the chance and to be in the position to do it, so...
Well, it's been great chatting with you. It's been great coming to see this remarkable factory after hearing so much about it. So thanks for your time. Thanks for the facilities. Thank you, Mark, for your help. And I'm sure I'll be back and see you in the not so distant future.
Okay, all the best.